if I was to ask you guys, if today somebody you loved or somebody you knew had a psychiatric emergency at 2 a.m., who would you call or where would you take them? Any show of hands, I'm happy to just understand as to where would you take them or who would you call? Hospital? Which hospital? Just name any. Kokila Ben. Anybody else? Okay, anything else except for hospitals? Okay, so let's just talk about hospitals, right? So what's really shocking is that if today you take a psychiatric patient to any general healthcare facility in India, be it a Fortis, a Max, a Medanta, they don't admit psychiatric patients. They have emergency services that very strictly dictate that we don't take psychiatric emergency services. So currently in India, in the general healthcare ecosystem, there's not a single place where you can take a psychiatric patient or a patient that's addicted to alcohol, substance, or any habit. When I say habit, it could be gaming, gambling, the internet, right? So I'm just going to dive deep into what is it that we do, who I am. So my name is Kanishk. I'm a co-founder and chief operating officer at Sukoon Health. Today I'm really excited to share with you my journey of building a profitable mental health business in India over the last 5 years. So now, considering the post-pandemic environment that we all live in, most people immediately will associate a new age mental health care startup with online therapy or doctor consults. We are not that. While virtual consultations and online therapy are an important part of our service offerings, it is not the core of our business. We are building India's largest network of psychiatric hospitals, alcohol and substance rehabilitation centers, and outpatient cities. Currently, we have 4 such facilities across Delhi, Gurgaon, and Bangalore. So the services that we offer range from acute psychiatric care to online therapy to alcohol de-addiction, ECT. ECT is something that you all would be familiar with. So ECT is electroconvulsive therapy. Everybody that's seen a movie in India that's really stigmatized, where they say pagal hai, ise shock dete hain, that shock therapy is ECT. RTMS is a non-invasive procedure of ECT as well. These services are delivered by a multidisciplinary team of psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, art-based therapists, yoga instructors, physiotherapists. So this is what a Sukoon Psychiatry Center in Gurgaon looks like. It's not your typical healthcare infrastructure. It's made to look like a 4-star property that delivers for psychiatric care, because today, if anybody knows this, right? How long does it take somebody to get a new kidney? So like a kidney transplant, how much will it take you, like in terms of time? 6 months? 6 months? The average wait time for a government psychiatric facility is over 2 years, because the average length of stay in psychiatry for something as small as psychosis or schizophrenia is 3 weeks. So when we admit a patient at Sukoon, on an average, they stay with us for 3 weeks for psychiatry, and for alcohol and substance de-addiction, which is this facility, a Sukoon Recovery Center in DLF Chhatarpur. Over here, my average length of stay is about 45 days for every patient. So far, we've helped over 40,000 people lead more meaningful lives and are on track to touch about 100,000 lives by the end of this year. So how did I, an engineer with minimal knowledge of healthcare, let alone mental health care, get started on this journey of entrepreneurship? I believe that a startup organization is one of the strongest forms to make the world a better place. If you take a group of people with the right equity and intent and organize them in a startup, you can unlock human potential in a way never possible before. They can achieve unbelievable things. But if the startup organization is so great, then why do so many fail? I'm still not sure, but in my experience of having worked across multiple startups in Silicon Valley and India, from building a solar energy market aggregator to leading product for Lenskart and Car Dekho, to starting a product and tech consulting agency and fintech consulting agency, I believe that there are 5 factors that contributed the most to our success. The 5 essential elements that led to our success: the idea. I used to think that the idea is everything, right? It was our eureka moment, it was our aha moment. We in fact focused on it so much that we spent significant amount of time on it. But as we started building out the business, the idea became more and more minuscule, right? It seemed like a faraway thought. While we maintained the idea, I think what started becoming important to me was the execution. Hence, the second factor, the team. Now, the next thing that we really focused on was the business model. When I say business model, simply put, profitability. People will tell you, or 2 years ago even I could have told you, from my misperceptions, that focus on customer acquisition, focus on revenue generation, but unfortunately, the funding winter that we're all in, I would say when I talk about business model, it primarily means profitability. The fourth factor, funding, right? We all know it, we all understand it. There is no scaling, there is no reach without massive capital. And the fifth most important factor, something that we got very lucky with, and I'll elaborate on that further, is the timing that we did it at, or the timing that anybody starts a business as. Are you too early? Are you going to have to spend time educating the people? Are you too late? Are there already too many competitors in your field? So let's start with the first one, which is the idea. What's most shocking and fascinating, something that I already told you, but I'm just going to reiterate so that it sits with you, is that even today in India, not a single general healthcare provider admits patients for psychiatry or alcohol substance de-addiction. I found this out 5 years through my co-founder Vidit, when he needed to admit a loved one. Upon exploring the landscape, we came to the realization that there wasn't a single private psychiatric hospital that treated its patients with dignity and respect. When I talk about dignity and respect, most people will think of a psychiatric hospital as a mental asylum. There's a big difference between the two, right? A mental asylum is where you've lost hope in the patient's recovery. A psychiatric hospital is where you're just discovering the symptomology and see a path to recovery. So a psychiatric hospital cannot have prison bars, cannot have, uninhabitable living conditions. So when I started exploring the landscape, both from north to south, though south had a larger infrastructure, we realized that there was no space that was treating patients with dignity and respect. That is how the idea for Sukoon was born. We started with a concise and focused mission. We wanted to build India's best psychiatric hospital that provides great quality of care within a comfortable environment. Looking back at it, I feel like we were foolish in our lack of understanding and how difficult this would prove to be. But given our youth and sheer ignorance, we set on this path in late 2018. Now, along our journey, there were numerous occasions where we were almost convinced to pivot or dilute our vision. But we stuck to our guts and kept reminding ourselves that we're only in the business for residential psychiatric care. Moving on to the second item, that is the team. Both Vidit and I, my business partner, come from non-healthcare backgrounds. I mean, back then, we didn't even understand the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. As we started building out the 20,000 square feet of real estate, we realized that we needed a clinician to help us define our clinical philosophy, our clinical treatment, and our clinical hiring. We addressed this shortcoming by partnering with Fortis Hospitals. We met their CEO at the gym, and after 2 months of constantly one-upping each other at workouts, we started talking about our careers. He was gracious enough to put me in touch with the Director of Mental Health Care Services, and we got to work. While we started developing the clinical program and our clinical treatment philosophy, we realized that doctors are extremely difficult to work with and even more difficult to manage. So we needed a healthcare administrator to come and help us with this problem. Now, our version of a healthcare administrator was that we needed a general manager to stay in the hospital 24/7. Why stay in the hospital 24/7? Because there are a lot of self-harm incidents in psychiatric care. No individual in Delhi NCR wanted to live in a psychiatric institution around mentally challenged patients 24/7. So we approached this problem from a different angle. We started targeting tier 2 cities, government psychiatric facilities, and started approaching their administrators. We found one person by the name of Mr. Deepak Sahu from Bhopal, whom we promised the glamorous life of Delhi NCR, its various clubs, its various pubs, and its metropolitan living. In 1 month, he packed up his bags and he moved into the Sukoon Psychiatry Center, Gurgaon. Till date, almost about 6 months ago, when we hit 60% occupancy, we kept our core team members as 4 people. Me, my my co-founder, our lead clinician, and our healthcare administrator. So while our entire team was dedicated, committed, and focused on building only residential psychiatric care, we were extremely lean. Talking about occupancy, right? When I said that we kept the same team up to 60% occupancy, let's move on to the third factor, which is our business model. So I come from a traditional business family. If my dad had his way, my first words would probably be profit, right? So from the very get-go, single unit economics was important to us, and hence we kept our model asset light. We leased our properties, got our landlords to build them out, and opened it in parts. We constantly asked ourselves, what is it that we're trying to solve for? We were building India's best psychiatric hospital that only had 21 single occupancy rooms. So we are only solving for quality of care, not accessibility of care, and not affordability of care. Market research demonstrated that we could price our offering at 21,000 rupees a night, all inclusive of treatment, right? So your therapy, your psychiatric consults, your medication, art therapy, gym, yoga, food, everything is included in 21,000 rupees. And there would be no dearth of patients. That was not the case at all. While the patients existed, we didn't know how to reach them. The digital advertising ecosystem allows for limited keywords for mental health and completely forbids de-addiction services. So today, if I was to put up an ad saying Sukoon Recovery Center for Alcohol Rehabilitation, my ad is not going to go live on Google or Meta, right? We overcame this challenge by building out long-form content around mental health in India with only one purpose: to educate the people. No hooks about Sukoon and no hidden agenda. Pure education about the taboo and stigma and the causes and the symptomology around mental health care. Parallelly, we built a network of psychiatrists that wanted to do right by their patients. A lot of them were managing severe cases in an outpatient clinic and needed a residential facility to admit them. We built a digital hospital management system from scratch and gave access to them. This hospital management system is HIPAA certified and has video conferencing built into it. So if today, Dr. Alok Sareen, one of the biggest psychiatrists in India, needs to admit a patient to Sukoon, at any given point in time, he can put in a request to do a video call with the patient. This broke away the entire care cycle and from taking a patient away from their existing healthcare provider and moving them into our ecosystem. It made it a partnership. It made it a collaborative ecosystem. This made them also feel involved in the care plan. A mixture of this and call-only ads, since nobody wants to fill a form for an emergency treatment, led us to that 60% occupancy within the first 6 months of us being operational. We were getting patients, they were being treated and reporting a better quality of life, but my mental health was deteriorating because of profitability that had been elusive to me for the last year and a half. Sukoon wasn't taking complete ownership of the recovery process. We soon realized that while the patient is at the peak of their symptomology, they come to us and get treated. But while they're medically managing their psychiatric needs, they don't interact with Sukoon. We treated the patient at their most severe symptoms, and we realized that we wanted to build an online therapy and virtual consultation web application that would ensure continuity of care for the patient. So while they still primarily go to their resident psychiatrist, they can still be in touch with our therapists or with other support systems that they have built at Sukoon over the course of their 21 days stay. Over the last 4 years, we have built out our online therapy module extensively. We do about 1,000 consults a month. Another big factor for this to scale it to pan-India was that Google and Meta allowed ads for therapy. So while we could use this to capture the audience, build awareness around the brand Sukoon, we still kept our focus to residential psychiatric care. Once our first hospital turned profitable, we knew we can scale our model while maintaining a high quality of treatments and services. We needed a lot more capital to do that. Since we would be building our own operational systems, standardizing protocols across cities, and building a Sukoon School of Mental Health to address the gap in the mental health care the supply side of the mental health care professionals. So a very surprising fact that I would like to share with you is, today India has less psychiatrists per capita than even Pakistan. So Pakistan's got 1.6 psychiatrists per 100,000, India's got 1.2. There are only 12,000 clinical psychologists. So a clinical psychologist is registered with the Rehabilitation Council of India. We only have 12,000 clinical psychologists for 1.4 billion people. So the entire supply side needs to be addressed. If today my mission is to create 40 such facilities over the next 8 years, who is going to be managing the patients there, right? So that brings me to my fourth factor, which is funding. I'm not going to dive deep into this factor since there's more than enough information available about this everywhere. Instead, I'm going to focus on our approach. We got a financial consultant. One thing we never shied away from the very get-go was admitting our shortcomings. We didn't understand valuations and we didn't understand large long-term cash flows. He oversimplified this for us. We soon realized that we needed to overcapitalize our business, preventing or rather fortifying us from any black swan events that could come in the future and that we were currently experiencing, which was COVID, right? Nobody had anticipated that, especially in the healthcare industry. In November 2022, we raised $15 million from Lightrock Ventures, the largest mental health care investment in Asia. Lightrock is a social impact fund owned by the world's largest bank. It was definitely an unimaginable feat if you were to ask us a few years back. Our timing definitely played a very important role in it, which brings me to our fifth factor, which is timing. So we operationalized our outpatient services in October 2019, and in February 2020, we operationalized our inpatient services. So I had my entire 20,000 square feet of a psychiatric facility live. In March 2020, literally 30 days after COVID hit, the entire country went into lockdown. So while we were operational throughout COVID, and as unfortunate as COVID and the pandemic was for society, it was a catalyst for our business. Social deprivation had made people realize how much of their mental health depended on factors outside their homes, and it made mental health a newsworthy topic. From Arnab Goswami, an individual that can definitely benefit from some anger management therapy, to Baba Ramdev, everybody was talking about mental health care. If we would have opened even a month later, we would have not been operational for 2 more years, right? We also accounted for a large digital marketing spends to help fight the stigma and taboo, but luckily for us, the pandemic was helping us with that. So my entire budget that was allocated towards awareness decreased drastically. So as important as timing is, if I was to personally rank this for our business, I would rank timing as number 1, the team as number 2, the business model as number 3, and then the idea as number 4. So the reason for ranking it in such a way is because, like I see this room is full of people from established businesses. I can see some budding entrepreneurs, some people from some startups. So don't focus so much on the idea. As long as you truly believe that you're solving a problem, irrespective of how small it is. The smaller, the better, in my opinion, because then you can target a specific niche while you build out your differentiators, right? Because nobody starts with a very valid differentiator from the very get-go. You're kind of iterating on it. So take that leap of faith, make that jump, because there will always be unknowns. You will never know enough. The more you know, the less you will believe you know. Take that leap of faith, start working towards it, and you yourself will figure it out, as long as you have intent and you're committed to do right by your customers. In our case, our patients. So thank you so much for listening to me so patiently.